Shove it, man!
Alright, the squad, it's the girl taking, never shaking, back breaking, HAWK, all night, all day, except on Saturdays when I'm busy making your girl spray. We're doing something completely new on the channel today, so grab yourself a smoke and a pot of Pringles because we're going to be watching a movie. Yeah, you heard that right. It's not that I'm trying to branch out or anything, I'm just a fan of anything wrestling related that hasn't been covered by the big channels already. The Hawk's a trendsetter and it makes your girl wetter. I came across this one movie though, and its rating is terrible, a 2.2 on IMDb. Now that wouldn't normally be a big deal, but included in this movie's cast are Glacier, for some reason, Kevin Nash, Psycho Sid, and it's starring Perk Angle. And as you all know, anything with the Master of the Perk Soul interests me and the squad, there's no need to nod. So let me introduce you to River of Darkness, released in 2011. Kevin Nash had been trying to break into acting for a long time. It's a similar story for Kurt Angle. Angle had already been in another terribly rated film though at this point called Endgame. Both men were signed to TNA at the time of filming, but Nash left them just 2 weeks before the movie's release and signed with the WWE. So maybe that's why TNA never mentioned this film. Or maybe it's just because it sucks Sonny Saki's ass. Psycho Sid had only previously been in the Ready to Rumble David Arquette film, but none of these guys were exactly seasoned actors, not looking good. They did star alongside Bill Hinsman, who was in Night of the Living Dead. The film was a straight-to-DVD release and only had around a $3 million budget, and it's a zombie horror film. At least Hinsman was a good casting decision in that case. Anyway, I've rambled on enough, let's watch this thing. We start off meeting some sad girl in the snow who has just been found responsible for a friend's death. She says we all have one foot in the grave. There's no need to misbehave. A waitress is now living a depressing life. Her horse-faced friend blows her off, so I guess her life isn't going well at all. It cuts to night time where the waitress is now randomly staring at a set of stairs and walking along slowly. I have no idea why she's creeping around and walking like this. Nothing's happened to make her this wary. Suddenly some keys jingle behind her and now a large man in a cloak is here. And he stabs her several times, I shouldn't be laughing. It's a murder by the riverside, hence the film's name. And that sets up our story. It's up to Sheriff Tweedledee and Deputy Tweedledum to solve the case. Perk Angle asks the ambulance team what's going on. Then he suddenly says Sweet Mary and Joseph with a dramatic expression as the camera pans out to show that her body is on the pole. When Angle talks, he opens his mouth more than usual for some reason. The townsfolk don't seem to be Kurt Angle fans and they ignore him at a cafe. Another crime is called in and he has to leave without his coffee. He is Sheriff Logan and he is going to save the day. Why the locals hate him hasn't been explained. He arrives at the next crime. It's a church where a woman is in all black and muttering and refusing to move. She tells us that they have come. Sounds like a TNA storyline. Sheriff Angle leaves, looking disgusted. Back at the cop shop, they're struggling to find any evidence. Forensic evidence says that the girl who was murdered was noodled. And it would take someone very strong to be able to do it to a human. Elsewhere, two fishermen are going about their boring lives. One of them is a drunk and goes off to fetch some beers. Yet again, we hear the jingling of keys. The fisherman tries to investigate when a giant hand grabs him with a claw and pulls him as he does a comical scream. The other fisherman is screaming that he needs a beer. He gets off his fat ass and finds his fisherman friend stabbed and hung up. He screams at him like he's going to be able to reply. Then an anchor goes through his gut and he's dead too. Sheriff Angle seems to be living in the smallest trap house of all time. I guess he spent all his money on perks. The news about the fisherman's murders is now called in. How did they find such a small desk for him? At the murder scene, they're both staring at the dead bodies. Angle is coming across as such a dumbass, he has nothing interesting to say and he never has an answer to anything. They all seem to have the word Hicks carved into their heads. I don't know if this was a slur about rednecks. He is struggling so much with the case that he needs some help from the other fishermen. One of the old grey fisherman crew says he heard the word Hicks before, but he refused to tell Sheriff Angle what it actually means. He tells Angle to go and speak to somebody else who can explain the word. God, these townsfolk suck. Angle finds the man he's looking for standing on a bridge, throwing food in the water to fish. Before Angle can say a word, the old man asks him if fish have souls. This line had me both confused and laughing. Angle asks him if he's the man he's been told to find. The man says he is and they need to go for a walk before he can tell Angle what he needs to know. At the man's cabin, he offers Angle some moonshine, but Angle of course doesn't drink. The old man finally reveals that Hicks is a man who used to live in the town before, but he was run off. He refuses to give any more information. Angle asks why the town is so useless at helping him. The old man doesn't want Angle digging up the past. They head off and find this Hicks character's cabin straight away. If he was so secretive, how did they find it straight away? These are the most useless sheriffs of all time. The Hicks man pulls a shotgun on them and denies being Harvey Hicks. They leave empty-handed. Back at the cafe, Angle is getting better service this time. Angle's lack of neck is really emphasised by this shirt. Glacier appears for the first time. He's playing the part of the village idiot. He asks how the investigation is going. He randomly tells Sheriff Angle that the Jacobs boys have come back from the dead. They were some gang from years ago that were killed by the townsfolk. What a weird revelation after Angle's been investigating for so long. More fishermen are going about their lives as if they haven't been following the news at all. Jingling keys, and this time there are 3 ghostly figures standing behind the fisherman. They throw an axe into him and cut him up. The whole scene looks so cheap. We get to see Kevin Nash for the first time. He has silver hair, a black face, and big shining eyes. The old lady who had her husband murdered just now is now in the cafe. She doesn't tell the police. Instead, she tells Glacier. She tells the entire cafe that the Jacobs boys are back. Glacier says he's finding it hard to believe, even though he mentioned it earlier himself to the sheriff. We meet 3 new characters now. I guess they are the Ghostbusters. Sheriff Angle is still stomping around failing. He visits the cemetery. Jesus, they put that old man in the ground quickly. He only just died. Angle wants the old lady to give her statement. She agrees but tells Angle that you can't arrest the dead, with Angle doing his standard confused face. The Ghostbusters stop at the gas station and ask for directions to the river. It's 2011, can't they just look it up for themselves? They have heard all about the murders and they're here to investigate. Angle returns to see the old man from earlier. The old man agrees to finally tell Angle the story of the Jacobs boys. Back in the day, there was this group called the Jacobs boys and the town hated them, they were outcasts. Then one day a little girl made up a story that she was raped by one of the Jacobs boys. So the town tied them up and sent them over a waterfall. The old man tells Sheriff Angle that the Jacobs boys were never buried. Angle is now at the church again to see the lady in black. She tells him that he already knows who's committed the murders. Angle discovers that for this to end, Harvey Hicks has to die. Because I guess he was the leader of the townspeople who murdered the Jacobs boys. Talking of the old man Hicks, he walks around for ages in the dark. It's so poorly lit that I just wanted it to end. He goes outside where he meets Psycho Sid for the first time. He stabs old man Hicks in the gut whilst gritting his teeth. Well, at least Sid suits this role. Turns out old man Hicks is dreaming that he's being murdered. The Ghostbusters are using their ghost tracking devices on a lake. They hear the jingling noises and their boat engine dies. One of the girls is pulled overboard whilst the others stand around like dumbasses. The other girl eventually puts her oar into the water while she screams no, no, no over again. The acting is appalling at this point.
Mackenzie!
Angle is back at the old man's house again. He says he's here to find more answers. Why doesn't he just hire this old man? His deputy has done literally nothing. This old man's done way more. At a bar, the locals are gossiping about the murders and talking about satanic rituals. They complain that the sheriff hasn't done anything, and that's a completely fair assessment at this point. One of them somehow makes the jump that the murders are the sheriff's fault. Sheriff Angle is back in the church again. The old lady tells him that he has to do what is right. I'm sure he has no idea what's right or wrong. He has no idea what's going on. Why is he just a black shadow in the church? At this point, this lady should be arrested for squatting. Doesn't she have anything better to be doing? A little girl is out now by the water. The world's dumbest mum agreed she could go out and play. With worms for some reason. I like worms, but I don't like worms crawling on me. All we see is an axe, and now she's presumably screwed. The sheriff's deputy gets a call from the daughter's mum. The mum says her daughter has been gone for 3 hours. What the hell is wrong with this woman? Who would just let her daughter go off in the dark for 3 hours by a river? The sheriff's deputy pulls a face like, well, she's screwed. Sheriff Angle is called to the murder scene where the mum is now attacking Perk Angle. It's a really awkward scene. She tells him that he should have stopped this. Another cop tells Angle it's time to get the FBI involved. Glacier tells Angle it's time that he realised what was going on here. He's told to stay out of it. He doesn't stay out of it though, and he calls some unknown person saying it's time they handled this. It turns out that 2 of the Ghostbusters are still alive. Their boat still won't start. Great line here. The guy says, well, it seems we're up shit's creek without a paddle. I didn't know this was a comedy film. Out of nowhere, the girl asks if they're heading towards a waterfall. He says there doesn't seem to be any in this area, but he'd give them a 25% chance to make it out of the boat alive. Where did he get that from? These boat scenes are the dumbest part of the movie. Old man Hicks is still freaking out in his cabin. Something happens to him, I think he was taken. Glacier and his friend get some fuel. They reveal that they're going off hunting. Someone is tied up in the back of the truck, presumably Old Man Hicks. Glacier is acting very shady. The gas station attendants are very concerned. One of them snitches on Glacier to the sheriff's deputy. He tells them about the tied up person in the back of their truck. The deputy tells Abgle about the report, who goes wide-eyed. The Glacier crew meet up with another man. They admit that the man tied up in the back of the truck is Old Man Hicks. They're also worried that the gas station people told on them. Their plan is to take Old Man Hicks out to an island and leave him there. They believe this will satisfy the evil Jacobs boys. Old Man Hicks looks so depressed in his little boat. But before that can happen, Abgle sneaks up on a fat man in a wife beater. He says he wants to make an impression and he needs to use the man's big boat. Why is a big boat necessary? They're going after the Glacier crew, and who is this fat man? I've never seen him before. Abgle asks him if he knows anything about what's going on, but he doesn't. Seems like they have that in common. Abgle says he still doesn't believe in the Jacobs boys. They run into a boat. Abgle says he bets it's the paranormal researchers. When did they ever learn that those people existed? What a plot hole. Abgle tells them that they're safe now and goes to fetch some towels. Whilst he's gone for literally 5 seconds, Kevin Nash attacks the dumbass girl. Abgle returns and tries to shoot him, and Nash says his only line of the entire film, "I'm already dead," and then he kills the boy. After a tussle, Abgle stabs Nash and flees. Somehow, Abgle manages to get a noose around Nash's neck, but when he pulls the gun, Nash has vanished into thin air. They continue with their mission to the island. Abgle asks if they can slowly sneak up on the island to catch the Glacier crew in the act. So why did they need a big boat again? I'm so confused. Abgle said it was to make an impression. Why did they want to make an impression? My bet is the only boat they were allowed to get for filming was this one, and they had to write it into the story somehow. Glacier and his friend think they've hit something and their boat is broken. They plan to shove the Old Man Hicks onto the island, but Sheriff Abgle appears on his big boat with his big gun. How did that thing manage to sneak up on them? He tells them that kidnapping is a crime. Glacier refuses to back down and wants to go ahead. Abgle is stopped mid-sentence when 3 ghostly figures start walking from the island. I love how the third figure's face is never shown because the actor isn't anyone important. Old Man Hicks starts praying for his life as his boat slowly drifts towards the 3 friends. They hit him with axes as Abgle watches on all wide-eyed and confused. The Ghostbusters girl says that was my grandfather. Not sure if she's talking about the Old Man Hicks or one of the Jacobs boys, seeing as they're all dead. How is that even relevant to anything? What a pointless storyline. The film ends with the Ghostbusters glasses girl revealing that she was the one who killed the man who raped her mother. I know she's the girl from the start of the film, but what? She says Sheriff Abgle helped her avoid jail for the murders. Why is that plural? What other murders? She didn't murder the other Ghostbusters. What murders? I'm so confused. This ending came out of nowhere and was a completely unnecessary subplot. This film was bad. Probably the worst film I've ever seen. A 1 out of 10. The whole plot hinges on the Ghostbusters, one of which was the girl from the start of the film. But the problem is they didn't come into the film again until 3/4 of the way into it. It would have been nice to have some establishing shots to see what they were about and why they were doing this. But for most of the film, no mention was made of them. The Jacobs boys barely did a thing. They really only played a small part despite being what the film was all about. I was disappointed by Nash and Sid's lack of involvement. And Sheriff Abgle? Jesus Christ, this film made him look stupid. He didn't know anything. He couldn't stop any of the murders. We didn't learn anything about him as a person except he didn't believe in God. The townspeople all hated him, presumably because he sucked as a sheriff. Like, leave him alone, guys. He just wants to solve these murders. Cut him some slack. What is your problem? He had no good lines despite being the main character, and he always just looked confused. Why was he continuously showing the townspeople graphic photos of murders? I actually thought Glacier did okay. He's got a good voice for film. But overall, an hour and a half of basically nothing. Half the film is people slowly walking around in dimly lit locations. River of Darkness. Well, at least they got the darkness part right. Don't watch this film, it's terrible. It deserves its bad rating. And if you don't agree with that, I'll catch a girl while she's ovulating.